Good evening, this is Eva. Tonight I'm going to be talking about True Detective Season 1, which was a series that was like a true crime series about two detectives in rural Louisiana. And it's like a pagan satanic cult. They find that they're having ritualistic murders, and the two detectives have to go in there and figure out who's causing this to happen. And there's just a whole lot of religious, Christian, Gnostic symbolism throughout everything. There's themes of both philosophy and psychology covered heavily in these, plus just human nature and the big showdown between good and evil. So, of the two characters, Matthew McConaughey plays kind of the more introverted, pessimistic, but very detail-oriented detective. And this show kind of starts when he's kind of at his best. And it does like a little time forward where it's like pretty much, I think it goes forward 17 years at one point, and he comes back and talks again about the case. But it's like he's like kind of in his prime at this sequence, even though he's had a pretty hard life. He is a very odd loner. He does like to drink, but he's kind of controlling about it. He was divorced from his wife. He doesn't really have any other family members. And the reason for the divorce was because their child died as a toddler in a car accident on their street. And so pretty much ever since then, I think he spends like 4 years as an undercover drug agent. And he does go back into that somewhere in the fast forward of the years, but in this, when we see him here, he's just focused on this one case that's very bizarre. And he's extremely I don't know how you want to say it. He's extremely like tunnel vision when he's working on cases. He does have some PTSD from being a drug informant. And I think he originally had grown up living with his father. I want to say his father was a military guy, and they lived out sort of like in like the woods, like more of a, off the grid type situation. His whole apartment is completely spare of furniture. He has just a mattress on the floor, and then he has a crucifix behind him. And then all he has is like some boxes that he uses, the bookcases with crime books. And basically, he's a smoker, and he spends like literally all his time working on the case. Like, that's his whole life. And he's very intellectual, very like quiet. And he's a nihilist, which basically means he doesn't believe in anything. And this is pretty much talked about as because of his daughter dying. And so he talks a lot about, this is the big theme of the show, is that time is a flat circle. He says that over and over again. So what he basically means by that is, instead of time being linear, where it's like you go from step A, step B, and then, you kind of like the Sphinx in Egypt when they ask the riddle of the Sphinx, and it's something like, what creature is on two legs or something, and then by the end they have three or some long thing, and it's all about how like a baby to an old man who has a cane. It's like he's saying that like time is not like that. There's not like the you begin your life and then in your trajectory to schooling and then your career, and then like if you have a family, and your older age, like that's not how he thinks. He thinks time is like a loop, like a circle, and then to him it's very dark. He's really into nihilism, and he believes that we just go through the same looping events, and you literally have to keep. It's almost like it's almost like if I died, I came back to this planet as a similar person to me, and I had to go through a lot of the same things that I've already gone through as Eva. Kind of like that. Like it's very fatalistic. Like it's almost like you can't. He's looking at it in like a negative way. Like no matter what you do, you can't get away from your fate. Like no matter how much you strive one way or another, like in the end you don't have like true control over your destiny. And he's very fatalistic. And in one part of the movie, when they end up getting two of the children out of this horrible circumstance for these people who are, I don't know what you want to call them, pedophiles / occult leaders, out of their bizarre place where they're living. They managed to get a boy and a girl who were in there out, who'd been in there, for months, and nobody knew. And he says that the detective, when they're back at the police station, he says, like everyone's kind of like, oh, it's amazing, like you're so great that you got these kids out of there. And it's like his comment something like, one day we'll be there again and we'll have to get them out again. We'll have to go through the whole thing. We'll have to go through the whole shootout, and I'll get stabbed again. Like he has this very like, and he's like kind of accepted it, like this strange theory that like, I think that things repeat themselves like he's talking about, but to me it's more like Gabor Mate. No, I'm like destroying his name, but he's like a trauma specialist. He's on TV a lot, and he talks about how a lot of times when we pick the relationship we're going to have, or the person we're going to spend, have children with, many times, well, in his opinion, every time, we are attracted to somebody that we want to have that sort of have a family with and stuff. We only are like kind of unconsciously attracted to people who have the same kind of unfinished business that our parents had and we had with our parents. It's like we don't overtly know it, or we probably would avoid it, right? If you had a father who was a raging alcoholic, you wouldn't be too excited to then thus marry, somebody who, had a drug addiction, or like some sort of, you don't want to marry another person who, you don't want to go through that again, or like if they're an alcoholic too, like you probably wouldn't have, but it's like your unconscious programming mentally, like psychologically, according to some of these psychologists, is to be like your internal programming wants to finish the loop. Okay, so like when you die, it would be like you closed out, like you and your mate would have similar problems that your parents had, or that you had with your parents, and so